Hello everybody, welcome to In-Depth Deck Building. I'm Justin from Playing Board Games, and today I'm going to be building a big hand archetype for the Seeker class. It's going to be fun. So, if you don't know these In-Depth Deck Building, I build a deck, but I try to talk through my decisions with as much detail as I can muster to give you some more insight into how all of that works. I am looking at 3 investigators as our option here for our big hand. We have who I think is the one that is the easiest to play it in, which is Daisy Walker. I think Daisy Walker is very good at big hand, mostly because she has an old book of lore which she can hold and just get jobs done by having that old book of lore in play. Harvey Walters is, I think, has a higher ceiling than Daisy when it comes to big hand, but he does have his signature weakness, which we do need to be aware of to make things a little bit trickier. And then we have Amanda Sharp, who I think is the best big hand investigator because she can play a perception 2-3 times in one turn. And that's pretty good. So the question of the day is, which one do we choose to go with? I think I'm going to go with Harvey for this one. Harvey does have the downside where we have to build around his weakness a little bit, which is for every 3 cards in your hand, take 1 damage when you draw it. But that is a much easier weakness than it was previously, so why don't we build around that one? So let's go with Harvey Walters. Let's create a deck. It's going to be private. In-Depth Deck Building. Handsize Seeker. Most recent. And let's create a deck. Alright, so, hand size matters. We want to, I actually just quickly want to pull up Laboratory Assistant, just so I can see this card. Hand size, okay. So I can put in hand size here, and now we can see a bunch of cards that care about hand size increasing, but there's also, if we do hand, I want to find, what is that one card? No, that's going to be too hard to do it. Because we need the Seleno fragments, yeah. 5 more cards in hand. In hand? Yes, okay. Okay. So, what is the hand size deck? That's the question I should answer first. So hand size is cards that we're going to be holding. We're going to hold cards in our hand, and we're going to be looking at taking advantage of those cards in a variety of ways, whether that be by playing them, holding them, doing things with them. So some examples that we have here, I would like both of these, please. I guess I'm getting only one. So we have the Seleno fragments. This is one I talked about earlier, right? We have 5 or more cards in hand, you get +1 book. 10 or more cards in hand, you get +1 brain. 15 or more cards in hand, you get +1 book. I'm going to be real with you. Everyone take your finger, cover up that bottom line of text on the screen. We're not going to be going after this. I think this is a fun pipe dream that they put on the card to make it exciting, but I think it actually makes everything worse if you are trying to go for that. So we're just going to be looking at these top ones. And this is actually a good point that someone just brought up in chat. Pray that we don't roll amnesia. Here's the hard and fast truth, okay? I'm gonna get a little bit real here before we get to this next one. If you are basic weakness, am I spelling amnesia wrong? I am. No, I'm not. How do you get basic weaknesses on this? Bear with me, I'm still learning this. They should be here. It's because I'm looking at level 0 and I don't want either of these. Excuse me, there we go. That is the reset filter button. That's what we're looking for. Amnesia. No, it's still not here. That's okay. All right, amnesia, if you don't know, is the card that, there we go. Amnesia. So this is the weakness. Choose and discard all but 1 card from your hand. Likewise with paranoia for big money. If you are not, like, it's going to be a setback, right? It's going to be a setback to get hit by these weaknesses. However, you need to be able to recoup from them. That's kind of like the game plan of how you deal with basic weaknesses. You need to have a plan to recoup from them. So we're going to be recouping with crazy card draw. This is also why on the Seleno fragments, if we just get those guys back on the screen, we're not going to be vibing for that 15, because that is kind of like one of those things where it's just like, no, thank you. That's just like an unachievable goal that's just not worth our time. We're probably going to be looping our deck a lot. So Amnesia would be a really bad thing for us to actually end up hitting in our deck multiple times. Likewise, with Thrice Damn Curiosity, this is something that we're going to need to be aware of. For every 3 cards in your hand, take 1 damage. Realistically, I want to be holding around 10 cards in my hand to make this thing really, really pop. And that's kind of like my game plan. So I'm not looking at like a million cards in hand. I'm not looking at that for this big hand archetype. I think that's actually a trap. I think this archetype works best when you're hovering around 10 cards. So what does that mean? 8 to 10? You're going to be taking on average 2 or 3 damage from this effect. That's going to slow you down, and we're going to need plans for us to deal with that. Luckily, we do have plans. Additionally, if we look at some more some payoffs, so we have the Seleno fragments as an example of one of our payoff cards, but we have a really fun one in the form of Farsight on the upgraded sign. So during your turn, if you have 8 or more cards in your hand, exhaust Farsight, play an event card from your hand, playing its cost. This is no coincidence that this came out in the Harvey Walters pack, because this is kind of like the payoff to the archetype. So I'm going to put these in the side deck, because these are the ones that we are definitely going to be wanting to building towards when the time comes. These Farsights are going to be very important for our experienced. In these in-depth deck building videos, I only really build level 0 decks with some cards in our sideboard that we're going to be upgrading into, and Farsight is going to be the one that we're going to want. Now, Harvey Walters, let's go talk about him again. After an investigator location draws 1 or more cards from their deck during the investigation phase, that investigator draws 1 more card. So we are looking at, well, 1 card, not 1 more card, but 1 card. We are looking at triggering this every turn. We have a way in our kit already, which is after you successfully investigate Exhaust Vault of Knowledge and choose an investigator location, that investigator draws 1 card, and our maximum hand size is increased by 2. Look at all these things telling Harvey Walters that he wants to be the hand size guy. And luckily, they gave him a weakness that is actually kind of relevant to him. And when I mean kind of relevant, I mean mostly relevant. So we're going to solve this with Grizzly, nope, what's it called? It's like a diagnosis. Yeah, bizarre diagnosis. So when this card came out in Scarlet Keys, I've put this in all of my Harvey Walters decks. This card is just like insanely efficient at nullifying his weakness. It basically turns, so like if we think about it, right? This turns my weakness into a double action. Not actually like when you strip it down, but I think sometimes people get too lost in the numbers, and we kind of have to look about how it feels, right? I think that actually is more accurate with ARKHAM, because the numbers can change from day to day, scenario to scenario, situation to situation, but how it feels, it always feels nice to just nullify my weakness and then pick up a clue with my ability or one of my with one of my fast events, or just with an investigate action. So we are going to put this in here. These are always the first 2 cards. I put them in my side deck, didn't I? Just out of instinct. These are always the first 2 cards that I put in my Harvey Walters deck. And in my opinion, with these cards in your deck, you have solved your signature weakness, and you do not need to worry about it again. Thumbs up, congratulations, you've done it. Other things that can do this are Bulletproof Vest as well. But it costs experience, so I like it a little bit less. I'd rather spend my experience on other things, considering that I've already personally solved my issue with this bizarre diagnosis. It's a very powerful effect. 3 healing is very nice for Harvey Walters. With all that said and done, we can now start putting in hand size. So hand size is a little bit strange because it's also, it also gets a little bit fricked up by it just being good with card draw, right? So like a lot of cards that are good for hand size are also just like generally good cards. That's why Seeker is a powerful class, because they have a lot of card draw, and card draw fits in everywhere. We have some ways we can go with this, like with Dream Enhancing Serum, right? So this card, only the first copy of each card in your hand counts towards your maximum hand size. As a reaction, after you draw a copy of a card that is already in your hand, reveal both copies of and exhaust Dream Enhancing Serum, draw one card. I think this is a powerful card for Big Hand Archetype, but I personally think it's actually not the way we're going to go with this deck. And the reason for this is I feel like this card is actually a little bit of a trap, in the sense that before you know it, it's going to make your Thrice Damned Curiosity hit for a lot more. We don't want this hitting for more than 3. The reason for that is because as soon as it hits more than 3, we're going to have to worry about where are we making up that damage that we cannot make up with our Bizarre Diagnosis. So our Bizarre Diagnosis is giving us the threshold in which we want to get hit. So if we're going to have 12 cards in our hand, and we're taking 4, we have now taken 1 damage on our weakness, which doesn't matter. But let's say, for example, we cycle through our deck 2 more times, and we're taking 4 on each of those. We're now 3 behind on the damage that we healed from a Bizarre Diagnosis, which is actually a Bizarre Diagnosis all in of itself. Again, these numbers don't really matter because you could have 2 Bizarre Diagnoses in your deck, and you can play them both, but it's the feeling of the whole thing, which actually I think dictates a lot more than the numbers in this regard, right? So it's like one of those things where you're going to start feeling a little bit pressured, and then suddenly you're going to start making worse decisions, and then suddenly you're dead. And I still think Dream Enhancing Serum is a good card, but I think Dream Enhancing Serum is better in the other big hand users, whether it be Amanda or Daisy or Seeker, who is trying to also do big hand as well. But I think for Harvey Walters, we're not going to be fricking with this. Instead, I'm going to be looking at Lab Assistant. I'm going to be putting 2 copies of her. I think Laboratory Assistant is... I had a fight with some people a few days ago about these kind of things. And I think Laboratory Assistant is a very dangerous ally in this game. And she is easily one of the best facilitators of the Big Hand Archetype, just because now when she's in play, I can hold 10 cards in hand, which is conveniently the number that I want to get to not trigger my Thrice Damned Curiosity for 4. Vault of Knowledge in play will make me up to 12, but when you are playing, you just need to always be aware that you do not want to have... You don't want to have 11 cards in hand and then draw this as your 12th. You have to be always working for that to not happen. Thrice Damned Curiosity is also actually very easy for you to game. It's just a matter of being constantly aware of it. If it's in your discard pile, you can forget about Thrice Damned Curiosity until you reshuffle. But if you have not drawn Thrice Damned Curiosity yet, you need to always be thinking of how can I take advantage of Thrice Damned Curiosity. And the way to do that is by holding your Bizarre Diagnosis, or alternatively, keeping your hand size managed for when you know it might be coming. This is really nice in Harvey Walters because we can do burst draw in a lot of good ways. Harvey Walters also can like take advantage of cards like Eureka to draw Thrice Damned Curiosity. Oh no, you are right. No, you are right. Thrice Damned Curiosity, the 12th is fine. Yeah, you don't want it to be your 13th card. You don't want it to be your 13th cards, or if you're drawing in bulk and it would take you over 13. It would take you over 12. No, you're exactly right. My math was wrong on that one. You don't want this to be your 13th card or be drawing in bulk over those thresholds. So likewise, you don't want this to be your 10th card, or if you can avoid it, even your 7th card, right? Like the less damage you take from this, the better. It can be your 12th card, so if it's that's a great point. Again, though, this does carry over to the Laboratory Assistant and the Vault of Knowledge, because these do put you to 12. So if you're hovering at 12, you don't want to be hovering at 12, is basically if you have not drawn this card yet. If you have drawn it, hover at 12 as much as you want, but you just don't ever want this to be the 13th card in your hand. 3 damage is manageable. It can hit you for 3. We still want to avoid it when we can, because the idea is that, yes, we're big hand, but because our game plan is going to be resolving around Farsight, we are going to be able to play cards fast, and like 8 is actually the magic number. Big hand size is really secretly 8. That's why Solano Fragments is so tricky, right? Because it tries to tell you 10, but the real magic number is 8. So much so, I'm actually not playing Solano Fragments in this deck. Even though this is a big hand size deck, the problem is it's not the best hand size card. Let's also go back to what I was saying about Eureka before I was corrected. Eureka is also ways that you are able to dig out your weakness when you want to are also really powerful, because then it gives you 1, the card when you want, so you'll have less damage than if you just draw it randomly, and 2, it allows you to be a little bit less stressed about when you're going to see it because it's already in your discard pile. Okay. Let me just look up hand size again. So this is when things are going to get really boring for everybody. Because if I'm building a hand size deck, it's going to eventually evolve into just normal seeker nonsense, right? Because if you think about it, what really is hand size? And the answer to that, to me, is always just Farsight. So we're going to be event focused. And we're going to also play some other things that pay off on this, which is the form of extensive research. Or, as it's so lovingly coined in the community, expensive research. Because it costs 12! So reduce the cost by extensive research by 1 for each other card in your hand. Discover 2 clues of your location. There is a 1 experience version that costs 10. This is a really nice thing. It's going to go in our side deck. So it's just like basically it's just reducing the hand size. And then this is going to go here. So notably, let's talk about this with the numbers that we've been talking about with the hand size. 8 for Farsight makes this one cost 4. That's not great, so 10 is nicer for it. 8 for Farsight makes this one cost 2. But again, you need to like one of those things where when this card leaves your hand, it's also going to go into the cost. So just some things to be aware of. But like this thing is going to cost you 0, 1, or 2 commonly in this deck. This one we're going to eventually want to upgrade out of, but I still think because it has 2 books and like we have the value from this, it's still going to be viable to get things done. Okay. I know Solano Fragments, I've been going to this one a lot, and I said I'm not going to play it. Unfortunately, we're just going to forget about this, because, yeah, this card can give us +1 book and +1 brain. That's great. But you know what also just gives us +1 book? I'm sorry, everybody, but it's going to be Magnifying Glass. It's so efficient. It's just crazy efficient at getting the job done. 1 cost, fast, to get +1 book while investigating. Going to be at 6 book. Now, I know you might be thinking, but Justin, Harvey already has 5 book. Does he really want a Magnifying Glass? You're already up 2 on 3 Shroud locations. I want to be up even more on other ones. Funny you say Grim Memoir, because that is actually also what we were going to be talking about as well. Grim Memoir, I think, is just better than Solano Fragments as well, because hand size also cares about drawing cards. As I was mentioning earlier, we want to be drawing cards, and this allows us to do this. So we're definitely going to also be playing 2 copies of Grim Memoir in here. So these are, like, to me, Magnifying Glass and Grim Memoir are like the defaults. When Grim Memoir is empty, just play your Magnifying Glass and get rid of it. When you have Grim Memoir, like, it's one of those things that these things all sing together really well. Speaking of sing together, let's grab a few staples over here. We want Deduction to get more clues, and we want Perception to draw cards and get more books. I also am going to play Eureka. And the reason for that is because Eureka is the thing that can help us find our weakness, but it also draws a card. So Eureka is going to give us one of the 3, and then we're going to draw an additional card because of that. So if we look at this, we also can look at draw, right? And we want to specifically look on the event side of things. And I want to look at level 0 to start things off. So these are our events that draw cards. Let's talk about just they draw cards in some way. Let's talk about the ones that are actual, just like the card draw ones, in the form of deep knowledge, preposterous sketches, and thorough inquiry. Let's talk about the positives and negatives of each of these cards. Preposterous sketches, I think, is the easiest one to see the negative. It costs 2, and there has to be a clue your location. Only draws 3, which is a lot. It's going to draw 4 with you, but 2 resources is a lot. Notably, this is a little bit nicer to be fast with Farsight, but this is also kind of true for all the other ones we're going to be talking about as well. Deep Knowledge, 2 curse tokens, draw 3 cards, 0 cost. Upside's pretty easy to see, right? 0 cost. That's really nice compared to Preposterous Sketches. Also has a slight downside in the form of 2 curse tokens, but when we're using Grim Memoir and Magnifying Glass, it's not really that hard. And I'm going to assume that my teammates are also going to be playing good enough decks that these curse tokens aren't going to matter, especially if I also maybe share some cards with them. Last one we got here is Thorough Inquiry. 2 cost again, but the downside of it is that we have to spend an action, additional action, so it's a double card. But we get to draw 5 cards and we get to divvy them up as you want. That's a really nice effect, and the symbols on the cards are also notably really good. Thorough Inquiry can be committed for a double foot icon, so we can go to 4 for Mythos cards, which is really nice. Deep Knowledge with Katana users in shambles, amen. But that's anybody. That's any. I mean, no offense to Katana users, but I think they probably even crumble to just like a breeze, don't they? They're like, no, the wind's here. I can't swing my katana as efficiently. All right, so other upsides. So Thorough Inquiry with Farsight only costs us 1 action. And that's a pretty good selling point for us to take this card. It's going to be bad at the start, but it's going to get better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run 2 copies of Thorough Inquiry, and I'm going to run 2 copies of Deep Knowledge. And our Deep Knowledge are going to eventually change into Cryptic Researches. So it's just going to choose an Investigate location, then Investigator draws 3 cards. So that's going to be one of those things that we're going to eventually upgrade our Deep Knowledges out of. This card is not that exciting, but it's very freaking good. Now, it's one of those things that we might not need to because, like, you might be thinking, why would we want to upgrade that when our Farsight already makes Deep Knowledge fast? The answer to that is what we talked about earlier at the start of this with Amnesia, right? Where we need a plan to rebuild if we lose things, right? Additionally, let's say we have Cryptic Research, but our hand is full. We can also help our teammates without having to spend an action or use our Farsight, meaning we can use our Farsight for better things. Likewise, with Deep Knowledge, if we're using our Farsight to draw cards, we're not really using it to advance the game, which we're going to be looking at that next. Because right now, you might be thinking, but how are we winning the game? And the answer, of course, to that is just by Book V shrouding to victory, right? But we're going to be wanting to do some other things in the event window to make advantage of that. We're going to play Cryptic Writings as some of our economy. Are we? I do like it. I think it's very good, especially the upgraded version. It is very good. We're going to take this too. The upgraded version is going to go into our side deck. So let's look at the level 0 one first. Gain 2 resources. After you draw it during your turn, play it. Really nice. Hopefully we draw it during our turn. If we don't, we have a plan for that. This one's gained 3 resources, 4 if you have 10 or more cards in hand. Hitting this is nice, but a free emergency cash, like, don't knock it. If we do draw them, we can use the Farsight to play them, which is a really, really good way to mitigate the weakness of that card, like the downside. Okay. Now, we want to play a few more events to really make this thing pop. So this is the point where we kind of just, like, we have the groundwork for the deck. We probably want to look at our accessory slot as well. We probably want to look at our accessory slot as well to figure that out, but I think I want to grab some events. We could make Practice Makes Perfect. We're going to want the upgraded Perception in our side deck as well. Trust me, this card is freaking nutty. It's just, like, very good. So we could do Truth from Fiction. I actually really like Truth from Fiction. It can keep our Grim Memoir loaded forever. Okay, I'm going to consider this truth from fiction. Let's just, because it has an upgraded version that's also really nice. We look at some more secret synergy as well. Okay. I mean, we have 10 events right now. Most of them are card draw. We want probably a few that either help us win the game or are better for that kind of thing. Testing sprint. Let's look on the upgraded side too, so we can kind of see like a game plan of where we're going. And now I know you might be saying, but Justin, there's not that much hand size in here, but that's, again, the reality of the situation where our hand size is actually, our payoffs are minimal compared to some of the other stuff that we've seen, right? Oh yeah, speaking of Glimpse the Unthinkable, this card is very good too. I played this in the Harvey deck. So so in the Harvey deck I played with Eric. It has Ancient Stone. Let's reset all filters. Yeah, Ancient Stone. So the reason I'm not doing this again is because this is not really a big hand deck. It's kind of just a payoff to the card draw. So we're not really like doing that. I want to do like some hand size stuff that matters. And again, I don't really want to do Dream Enhancing Serum, but we are going to look at secrets. I do want to check out this stuff because maybe we can get like a nice thing to potentially... Oh, I guess we could do the Tome, right? There actually is a card that cares about hand size here, but it takes up a hand slot. Oh my god, never mind. So Forbidden Tome. They have secrets on them, and then we can use it to like move. So there is one Forbidden Tome that is actually like... it's not the damage one, it's this one, the Forbidden Tome. Where you may move to connecting location, discover one clue at your location, reduce the ability's cost by 1 for every 4 cards in your hand to a minimum of 1. This one actually is totally like playable when you have 4. Because even when you have 2, you get to move and discover a clue. Like if you were going to move and investigate anyway, that's actually like on rate for 8. But this one is kind of going against our issue where we're kind of more of a Farsight deck. So it's like that's kind of where we are falling apart a little bit. Okay, maybe we're not secrets. Like, if we did secrets, we'd do scroll of secrets, but that kind of means into magnifying glass. And we want to kind of like... I think we want to be more event-based. Okay. I'm going to play 2 copies of Burning the Midnight Oil. Because it's economy, but it also, like, advances the game. A Lightning Bolt Farsight is also not terrible to use with this. Give me level 0 still. So really, okay. Hand size is also going to go into the thing where like our plan is also deck cycling, right? So we're going to be cycling through our deck with the intention of looping these extensive researches as much as possible, right? So like we're going to play this for free, keep drawing, loop our deck, take a horror, which we're going to want to solve as well with logical reasoning. It's right here. It's perfect. So play only if you have at least 1 clue, choose an investigate location, then investigate their heals 2 horror and or discards a terror from their threat area. We're going to run 2 of these, and our logical reasoning is also can upgrade to this other version. I think this deck's like practically done because we also want to play Curiosity. Just to give us some Mythos phase protection as well, and also just more book. These effects are like never bad. So it's nice for us to have these here. And I do think we want to finish this deck with a few events. I mean, it's probably just Transmogrify. Transmogrify is very powerful. Could just be Shortcut 2. It's already fast, though. I mean, it could be Seeking Answers into the other version. Yeah, I could do Seeking Answers into the other version. It's kind of bad at the start, but it will get better. And I kind of like what it does for... Again, our game plan is the Farsight. Would I take Trauma to play In the Thick of It here? I think you definitely could. And I would like put in the extensive researches to start things off, right? I mean, I think I actually would do that right now. So let's get that going. Give me everything, please. Reset all filters. Give me card name. And then I would take these out. I'd put these into the deck. Take them out of the side deck. And then I would remove these, because then that just makes your deck like just generally better at the start. Is there something we'd want one experience? Yeah, probably. It could be Glimpse the Unthinkable. It could be that. Let me just look at these as well. I mean, it also could be the new Cosmic Revelation card too. Like that card is also like going to be pretty good in Farsight decks. And you know what? I actually want to do that. I'm going to put this in the deck, this Cosmic Revelation, and I think I'm going to kill one of those Deep Knowledges because they're kind of the same card. Obviously, I would take this out if I was playing with like 2 players, but I think that this is a fine way to go, assuming I'm playing this in like 3 players with Travis and Bryn. That's what I like to do with these series. Side deck. I mean, I actually can't think of anything. Let's look at our tools as well. Yeah, this looks pretty sweet. Very low curve. This curve is actually insanely low. We have a few cards that cost here, but we're looking at only playing a few of them. We're looping our Laboratory Assistants to great success. Recommendations, what the hell? What the heck is this? That's cool. It's learning. Neat. All right, looking at our side decks a bit more. Other cards we're going to want to play. Studious. Just gets us the ground running. Card is like absolutely wild. I think you mean scary. I mean, I don't think this is AI. I think this is actually just like, it's like looking at decks and like just like, putting those cards here, right? It's like it's looking at 406 decks on ARKHAM and like of these 406 decks, 83% of them are running deduction. Yeah. So this is just an Excel spreadsheet. There's no actual generation here. Even though it has a magic wand, it's not magic. It's just math, baby. So yeah, Studious. I always like this card. I always take it in my Seekers. It's very good. And then, yeah, the most important thing is we want to get that Farsight. That Farsight in the first scenario, and then we can start doing these and we can start going nuts. Again, this might not look like what you expect a traditional big hand deck to work for the Archetype. But to me, when I say big hand, this is what I end up playing. It is Farsight. That's like the payoff to big hand for me. I know there's those other things like Dream Enhancing Serum and Seleno Fragments, but I think that's not the way for this one. Like, maybe it is for, like, Daisy, but even not for Daisy. Even not for Amanda. I just think that, like, all this stuff is actually probably just the way to go. Okay. Well, thank you for watching. The deck link is down in the video description if you want to check it out. Huge thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel and also to all of everyone watching on YouTube. You guys all rock so much. I'll see y'all for the next one. Have a good one. And as always, a GG's.